What's the best joke you know? Stalin is sitting at his desk busy with paperwork when his assistant bursts into the room and says, "Comrade Stalin, there is a clairvoyant here that wants to see you. He claims he can see the future. Send him to Gulag," says Stalin. If he could see the future he wouldn't have come here. I mixed up the words jacuzzi and yakuza and now I'm in hot water with the Japanese mafia. How is 69 and being in the mafia alike? One slip of the tongue and you are in deep A Buddhist walks up to a hot dog vendor and says, "Make me one with everything." Bonus for philosophy nerds. Descartes walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey, Descartes, I just got this new import beer in. Want to try it?" Descartes says, I think not." And he vanishes into thin air. Two guys are walking down the street when they see a dog licking his balls. One guy says, "I wish I could do that." The other replies, "Well, maybe just try petting him first." A man goes to a funeral. He asks the widow if he could say a word. He goes to the front and says plethora and sits back down. The widow leans over and whispers, "Thanks. That means a lot." Another man approaches. He had been a close companion of the deceased. He too asks the widow if he might speak, and heads to the front. "Bargain," he says. The widow pats his arm. "That means a great deal. Thank you. I would have you know that you got both me and my dad laughing. I will gladly add this on when I tell this joke." "Dad, the trashman's here. Tell him we don't need any." A man sat down at a bar and told the bartender, "I bet you $300 that I can piss into the cup all the way over there on the other side of the bar and not miss a single drop." The bartender said, "There is no way you can do that." "Sure, I'll bet you $300. The man then begins to undo his pants and begins pissing. He starts pissing all over the bar, spraying on the bottles and the bartender, not making a single drop in the cup. The bartender starts smiling and laughing and says, "That's it. You owe me $300. The man then gets up and walks over to the pool table and starts laughing and shaking hands with the men standing there. He walks back to bar, sits down and starts laughing at the bartender and hands him the money. The bartender asks, "Why are you laughing? You just lost the bet." The man said, "I'm laughing because I bet those guys over there $1,000 that I could piss all over you and your bar and you would still be laughing when I was done." A penguin is on a long deserved vacation from the zoo. He decides to take a road trip out west, where his car breaks down. Luckily, it's right in front of a mechanic in town. He drops the car off and tells the mechanic he's going to get some lunch. It's a really hot day, so after eating he stops by the ice cream shop for a little treat. Walking back to his car, the mechanic tells the penguin, "It looks like you blew a seal." The penguin laughs. "Oh, no," he said, as he wiped his mouth, "it's just ice cream." What did the sign on the door of the brothel say? "Beat it, we're closed." I had a song stuck in my head the other day and kept singing it out loud. My wife finally broke down and screamed, "Will you please stop singing Wonderwall?" I said, "Maybe." "I hear you, dude." I was humming the chorus to "I'm a Believer" around the house the other day when my wife suddenly screamed at me to knock it off. This was really out character for her, so I just assumed she was joking. Then I saw her face. An English job foreman is hiring, and an Irishman soon appears requesting a job. Laughing, the foreman responds, "You? Hire you? I doubt you know the difference between a girder and a joist." After a moment of pondering, the Irishman responds, "Well, one fellow wrote Faust, and the other wrote Ulysses, and my favorite when it's okay to go off color." Mother Superior is sitting in the convent one night when she hears a knock at the door. She looks out the peephole, and, seeing no one, very cautiously opens the door. She's stunned to find two leprechauns standing meekly, hats in hand, on the steps of the nunnery. "My sons, how can I help you this fine evening?" "Well, mother, have you any leprechaun nuns in this convent?" "I'm sorry, my son, we've no leprechaun nuns here." "Well, mother, do you know of any leprechaun nuns anywhere?" "No, my son, I don't know of any in all Ireland. And if there's none here, then there can't be any leprechaun nuns in the whole church." At this, the first leprechaun whips around, jabbing his finger at his companion. "I told you'd been effing a penguin." "Doc, you gotta help me. I can't stop singing What's New P.S. That sounds like Tom Jones syndrome. Is it common?" "It's not unusual. Are you new in town by any chance?" "I am homeless. I'm gay. I have AIDS. And I'm new in town." What's the difference between a slob on a bicycle and a well-dressed individual on a unicycle? Attire. I went to the zoo and saw a baguette in a cage. I asked the zookeeper about it, and he told me it was bred in captivity. People are shocked when they find out what a terrible electrician I am. One day 3 people were stuck on an island with cannibals. The cannibals said, "If you do what we say, we won't kill you." So the 3 people followed the orders the cannibals. So the cannibals said, "Go into the forest and pick 10 fruits of the first fruit you see." So the first person came back out of the forest with 10 apples. The cannibals said, "Put the apples up your A without making a facial expression." The person then made a facial expression after the second apple. So the cannibals killed him. The second person came back out of the forest with 10 cherries. The cannibals said, "Put the cherries up your A without making a facial expression." The person then started laughing on the 10th cherry, so they killed him. In heaven, the person with apples asked the person with cherries, "Why did you start laughing?" The person replied, "I saw the third person come out with pineapples." A proctologist walks into a bank. He needs to sign a document. He tries to sign, but he pulls a thermometer out of his shirt pocket. "Oosh, some a-hole has my pen." Why did the blind man fall into the well? He couldn't see that well. The divorce court judge says to Mickey, "Now let me get this straight, Mr. Mouse. You want a divorce from your wife Minnie because she's crazy?" And Mickey says, "No, I never said she was crazy. I said she was effing goofy." This guy sees a sign, "Talking dog $5. He walks up and asks the man, "Does this dog really talk?" Owner, "Yep. Bullsh, dog. It's true. I can talk." Man, "Holy dog. Yeah, I started out in the circus as a sideshow, until the CIA found me. They recruited me as a spy. No one suspects the dog in the room is listening to state secrets. After 2 tours, I retired here in the country to live out my days." Man, my god, man. That is the most astounding thing I have ever heard. So, why the hell are you only selling him for $5? Owner, "Because that dog is a liar. He didn't do any of that a Labrador deceiver." A pair of hunters from Illinois are out in the woods. Whilst descending a hill, one of them suddenly cries out in pain and falls to the bottom, clutching his chest as he hit the ground. The other hunter rushes to his side as his friend noticeably stops breathing. Pulling out his phone, he quickly dials 911. After a few rings, the dispatcher picks up. 911, "What is your emergency?" asks the dispatcher. The hunter replies, "I am out near Route 51. My friend has a heart attack. I think he is dead. What do I do?" asks the hunter. The dispatcher replies, "It is okay, sir. Can you calm down and make sure that he is dead?" The hunter replies, "Okay." The dispatcher hears some rustling over the phone, followed by the resounding boom of a 12 gauge. The hunter comes back on the line asking, "Okay, now what?" Joke is courtesy of my stepfather and his old drinking buddy. The men of many laughs. 3 men went to hell, and they stood before the devil. The devil asked the first man, "What did you do for a living?" The man answered, "I was a lumberjack." The devil said, "Then we will chop your penis off." He turned to the second man, asking the same question he asked the first. "I was a fireman," said the second man. "Then we will burn your penis off," said the devil. He turned to the third man, asking the same question he asked the other 2. The third man thought about it, and finally answered the devil, "I was a lollipop salesman." CHMOMP. No. MR. Ow. A boss had 2 employees, Alice and Jack. He only needed 1, but they were hired at the same time and were both equally good at their job. He couldn't decide which to get rid of. He was sitting at a bar thinking about the situation. Alice walks in and sits beside him and asks, "You seem down. What's wrong?" The boss said, "I need to either lay you or jack off." Alice says, "Well, please jack off. I'm tired." Reminds me of the guy who got a job at the pickle factory. He came home from his first day and his wife asked him how it was. He said it was great, but he couldn't stop watching the Pickle Slicer. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't stop thinking about putting his penis in the Pickle Slicer. His wife thought that was a little bit weird. Time went on, but the woman's husband only became more withdrawn. He was obsessed. Finally she just confronted him. "Look, I can tell this thinking is eating you alive. Ignoring it isn't working. You just have to get this out of your system." Her husband croaked out, "Really? Really?" she exclaimed. I want you to stay late after work. After everyone has left, make some kind of excuse. Then when there's nobody else around, just go ahead and put your penis in the pickle slicer. Then you'll finally be able to move on. He silently nodded his head and left for work. All day she was thinking about her husband and the difficult time he must be having. Finally, he arrived home. A little later than usual. He slammed his lunchbox down on the kitchen table. "Well, I finally did it. I put my penis in the pickle slicer." "Really?" asked his wife. "Yes. I was thinking about it all day. Then, like you said, I stayed after quitting time and people had left. But my boss came back into the factory and caught me with my penis in the pickle slicer." "Oh no," she exclaimed. "I got fired." He responded mildly. "I can see he would be upset, but that seems a little severe." "What happened to the pickle slicer?" asked his wife. She got fired too." Well, I'm fired." Priest and plumber go golfing. It's the last 3 holes after a close round. Plumber misses his swing and curses bugger missed. The priest is mildly offended and chastises him. "You shouldn't curse in the Lord's presence." The plumber laughs it off and looks furtively over his shoulder. Next hole, the plumber is distracted and goofs on the putting green. He can't help but curse bugger this. The priest scolds him. "I told you. If you curse again, may the Lord strike you down." The priest takes the lead. On the last hole, the plumber is sweating from the pressure, practicing his putting move. 1 point separates them on the green. He swings, connects, and the ball rolls on the lip of the hole and pivots off target into the sand bunker. Fkin FCK. The plumber rants. Before the priest can chime in, a mighty rumble is heard. The thick clouds overhead part and a bolt of lightning screams through the air. The priest is struck dead and a voice from the cloud says, "Bugger, missed." "What do you call a dog with steel balls and no hind legs?" "Sparky, what do you call a dog with no legs?" "It doesn't matter, he won't come anyway." "What did Cinderella say when she got to the ball?" "Makes gagging sound." "I told this to my family when I was like 11. Went over well. The only thing so far that's made me laugh out loud is the mental image of someone telling their family that joke at the age of 11. I walked into the pharmacy and asked for some deodorant. The bull kind. Just for under the arms is fine. What do you get if you insert human DNA into a goat? Kicked out of the petting zoo. Why does the Little Mermaid wear seashells? Because she's too big for bee shells. Why does a chicken coop only have 2 doors? Because if it had 4, it would be a chicken sedan. I bought the worst thesaurus the other day. Not only was it terrible, it was also terrible. My grandpa would tell this joke called the Yangtze River story. Relatives would look at me and say, "Get comfortable." He finally took the time to tell me at my cousin's wedding. There once was a family that lived on the Yangtze River. They had an outhouse right on the river, and one day, it was pushed off the bank and floated downstream. The father of the family lined up his 3 sons, young, teen, and almost adult, lined up, facing where the outhouse used to be. The father asked the boys one by one, "Did you push the outhouse into the Yangtze River?" The youngest turned his head to the left, staring at the house they all lived in. It was a big red house that they all worked together to paint last summer. It was cold now, with winter approaching and the paint needing another coat soon. The father went to the next boy. "Did you push the outhouse into the Yangtze River?" This son looked straight up, swallowing hard so that his throat made an audible sound. Finally, he asked his eldest on, "Did you push the outhouse into the Yangtze River?" The boy locked his father's gaze, but declared, "No, I did not." The father pulled out a pastry from the nearby village. "I am going to tell you a story, and by the end, you will tell me who pushed the outhouse into the river." The boys all fidgeted, but were ready to hear their father's story. One day, a little boy chopped down his father's cherry tree. Instead of lying, he told the truth, and his father awarded him, gave him candy, and he grew up to be George Washington, the President of the United States. Slowly, the youngest boy stepped forward. "It was I, father. I pushed the outhouse in the river." With a flash, the father had his youngest bent over his knee, his belt in his hand, lashing hard, crying out. The boy shrieked, You said. The father, George Washington's father, wasn't sitting in the cherry tree. Did you hear about the man with 5 penises? His pants fit like a glove. A penis joke I haven't heard before. Literally just made my day. I could tell you another one that'll make your whole week. How do you spot a blind man in a nudist camp? It's not hard. But for this post I knew of many naked jokes, but I don't think I nudist one. Waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay sounds like a great time if you don't know what either of those things are. Water sports in Guantanamo Bay would be a whole other story. How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? None. What's the difference between a dirty bus stop and a lobster with breast implants? One is a crusty bus station and the other is a busty crustacean. What's the difference between and pickpocket and a peeping Tom? One is a watch snatcher and the other is a snatch watcher. As a Finn I have a special fondness for Russian Soviet political jokes. A new arrival to Gulag is asked, what were you given 10 years for? For nothing. Don't lie to us here, comrade. Everybody knows for nothing is 3 years. A judge walks out of his chambers laughing his head off. A colleague approaches him and asks why he is laughing. I just heard the funniest joke in the world. Well, go ahead. Tell me, says the other judge. I can't, I just gave someone 10 years for it. 3 prisoners in a gulag talk. 1 so why are you here? 2 my clock was early so I came to work early and they said I was spying you. 1 my clock was late so I came to work late and they said I was running anti-state propaganda at home. Hey, what about you? 3 my clock was on time so they said I smuggled it from the west. Here's a favorite of mine regarding the Winter War. There is an army of Soviet troops at the crest of a hill when all of a sudden from the other side they hear, 1 Finn can kill 25 Soviets. The Soviet commander enraged sends over 25 men. Gunfire erupts and then stops. Then out of the stillness the same Finn speaks again. 1 Finn can kill 50 Soviets. So the commander sends 50 men over again and the same result happens. Gunfire then silence. Again the Finn shouts, 1 Finn can kill 100 Soviets. In an absolute fury the commander sends in 100 men to dispatch the lone Finn. Gunfire erupts again and then silence. Only this time a Soviet soldier crawls back over the hill and shouts to his commander, it's a trap, there are 2 of them. I remember one. A man once received 25 years in prison for saying Gorbachev was an idiot. 5 years for insulting the leader. 20 for revealing state secrets. A frightened man came to the KGB. He says, my talking parrot has disappeared. The officer responds, that's not the kind of case we handle. Go to the criminal police. Excuse me. Of course I know that. I am here just to tell you officially that I disagree with the parrot. In a prison, 2 inmates share their experience. What did they arrest you for? One of them asks, was it a political or common crime? Of course political. I'm a plumber. They summoned me to the district party committee to fix the sewage pipes. I looked and said, hey, the entire system requires replacement. So, they gave me 7 years. My favorite Soviet joke. An old man is applying to the state for housing. He looks over the form and it has 4 questions. Where were you born? Where were you educated? Where do you live? Where would you like to live? He thinks about it and writes down. Street, Petersburg, Petrograd, Leningrad, Street, Petersburg. A Czech and a Russian are walking down the road and find 100 crowns. Czech money. The Russian says, comrade, let's split this like true communists. The Czech says, oh no, we're splitting this 50-50. Not mine. An Irish man wants a job, but the foreman doesn't think he's actually qualified. The foreman, being a little bored, decides to mess with him and tells him he'll get the job if he passes a little math test. Here's your first question. The foreman said, without using numbers, represent the number 9. Without numbers? The Irish says, that's easy, and he proceeds to draw 3 trees. What's this? The boss asks. Haven't you got no brain? Tree and tree and tree make a 9, explains the Irish. Fair enough, says the boss. Here's your second question. Use the same rules, but this time the number is 99. The Irish stares into space for a while, then picks up the picture that he has just drawn and makes a smudge on each tree. There you go. The boss scratches his head and asks, how on earth does this represent 99? Each of the trees is dirty now, so it's dirty tree, and dirty tree. That is 99. The boss is getting worried that he's going to actually have to hire this fellow, so he says, alright, last question. Same rules apply, but represent the number 100. The Irish stares into space some more, Then he picks up the picture again and makes a little mark at the base of each tree and says, "There you go, 100. The boss looks at the attempt. "You must be nuts if you think this represents 100. The Irish leans forward and points to the marks at the base of each tree and says, "A little dog come along and go by each tree. So now you got dirty tree and a turd, dirty tree and a turd, and dirty tree and a turd. That makes 100. So, when am I gonna start?" Doctor, I swallowed a pen. "Well, sit down and write your name. Seems like the person has appendicitis." Guy walks into a bar and says to the bartender, "I'll show you something amazing for a beer." Bartender agrees. Guy pulls out a 10 inches pianist from his pocket and sets him on the bar. He starts playing beautifully. The bartender, wowed, demands, "Where the hell do you find that, little man?" Guy says, "I've got a tiny wizard in my other pocket. For another beer, you can make a wish." Bartender agrees and says, "Wizard, I'd like 100,000 bucks." Suddenly the bar fills with 100,000 ducks. Bartender, confused and angry, says, "What the hell, mate? I didn't want 100,000 ducks." Guy responds, "Oh, you think I wanted a 10 inches pianist? I like. But he's got an ice machine and a cleaver." 100,000 ducks at 5.7 lbs. Duck dressed 570,000 pounds of duck meat. Duck parts go for all sorts of prices. Foie gras is $12 lb for instance, but let's say whole duck wholesale price is at $2 lb. He could come out of this with $1,140,000. A Chevy Silverado, a Ford F-150, a Ram 1500, a GMC Sierra, and a Toyota Tundra are driving in convoy. Best pickup line ever. What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One is very heavy, and the other is a little lighter. Not mine. I went to a beekeeper to get 12 bees. He counted and gave me 13. "So, you gave me an extra. That's a freebie." An Englishman, a Frenchman, a Spaniard and a German are all standing watching an American street performer do some juggling. The juggler notices the four gentlemen have a very poor view, so he stands up on a wooden crate and calls out, "Can y'all see me now?" "Yes, OUISC, jar." An Irish man walks into a pub. "What'll you have?" The bartender asks. "Give me 3 pints of Guinness, please," says the man. The bartender brings him 3 pints, and the man proceeds to sip them alternately, the first one, the next one, and then the third one, until they're all gone. He then orders 3 more. "Sir," says the bartender, "I know you like them cold. You don't have to order 3 at a time. I can keep an eye on you, and when you get low I'll bring you a fresh cold one." "You don't understand," the man says. "I have 2 brothers, one in Australia and one in the States. We made a vow to each other that every Saturday night we'd still drink together. So right now, my brothers have 3 Guinness Stouts too, and we're drinking together. What a wonderful tradition," the bartender says, smiling. Every week after that, the man comes into the bar and orders 3 beers, but one week, he orders only 2. He drinks them and orders 2 more. "I know what your tradition is," says the bartender sadly, "and I'd just like to say that I'm sorry that one of your brothers died." "Oh, me brothers are fine," says the man. "I just quit drinking.